Yes, there's a statement to be made if Tennessee can somehow stay competitive with Alabama. It seems more than unlikely that that's not going to happen, but we have thought the same with Derek Dooley on the sideline and almost pulling out a win a couple times against the Tide, most notably the game in Tuscaloosa. I believe Lane Kiffin was actually the coach of the 16-14 game with the blocked kick near the end of the game. So that Tennessee team was given up for dead and not supposed to be able to do anything against the best team in college football, and they came rather close. And there was one other good game in there 2 years ago in Tuscaloosa, a 19-14 type game where Tennessee had a late lead. Alabama just shoved it down their throats in the run game on the last drive in the last 4 minutes. Then Josh Dobbs was just under siege the final drive and didn't have much of a chance, but Tennessee outplayed Bama most of that game. So it's possible. For as ridiculous as it sounds, it's possible. It's got a slim chance of possibly happening. What I would think would be a bigger barometer, a better barometer for Butch Jones's minuscule hope of keeping this job is the Vols' performance against the teams that they're either supposed to beat or supposed to be competitive with. And that was South Carolina last week. That is Vandy and Kentucky coming up. That is definitely defeating Mizzou. They can't in any way lose that game. Sitting at 3-3, you got Mizzou, Kentucky, and who am I missing out of the SEC Eastern Division? So you got to sweep
Vanderbilt,
Vandy, Mizzou, Kentucky. You win 2 out of 3 there. You win the FCS game that they've got near the end of the season, and you come out at 6-6. And maybe Butch keeps his job. I don't think that's going to do it. Looking at this Tennessee team, so my thoughts are that Quentin Dormady won the job out of camp. He was selected as the better pocket passer, the guy that had the better grasp of the offense. But Garantano has shown us, after Dormady posted very marginal numbers, 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, just couldn't move the offense to the likes of 17 points against UMass at home, that Garantano is the much better option at this point. He's a younger player. He has more development ceiling and growth potential. He's a better athlete, and he's probably nearly as good a passer, if not better, than Dormady. And what I saw was the same thing that you saw, Stephen, at the end of the South Carolina game. There was a $120 left in that game. They needed a touchdown, and I thought, wow, with the way Tennessee's playing offense, with the way that they're playing offense this afternoon and the entire season, and they're backed up at their own 20, they have no shot of winning this game. Garantano hit Callaway with an NFL-type throw on the left sideline for about 18 yards. It was a bullet. It was thrown perfectly on the out route at the sideline. Then he found, I believe it was Brandon Johnson running down the seam, blown coverage. Sure, he was wide open, but it was a beautifully thrown bullet for like 35 or 40 yards down the seam. Big play. And then, as you mentioned, they bogged down in the red zone, and that's been the Vols' fate all season, not capitalizing in the red zone. The red zone offense has been awful. The guy that I love to watch on this team is John Kelly. John Kelly fights like a man every time he gets the ball. He may not be a prototypical NFL caliber back. I think he's got a spot on a roster, but man, does that kid fight for yardage and never gives up. I love watching John Kelly play. And then defensively for Tennessee, this is all you need to know, is that Georgia Tech, and I know that their rush attack is phenomenal, and they gained ground on everyone, but they ran for 535 yards against Tennessee. Then South Carolina, who had the dead last rushing offense in the SEC, couldn't do much the first couple drives and basically the first half. And then they got it going against Tennessee to the tune of like $150 in the second half as the worst rushing offense in the SEC. And Tennessee, I believe, is the worst rushing defense in the SEC. And that is not a good formula against the Alabama offense if you're not going to stop the run or put up any type of resistance against Damian Harris and company.
It's the perfect recipe to get squashed. It's the very much so perfect recipe to get squashed if you cannot stop the run. That's why I mentioned Colton Jumper and the rest of that group. You've got to play assignment football, whether it's Damian Harris, or Bo Scarborough, Josh Jacobs, or even Jalen Hurts on the zone read keep, you got to find some way to play assignment football, make the tackle in space. The one-on-one tackles in space, Mark, is the key to this game. If Alabama gets Tennessee in a one-on-one situation and the balls cannot bring down the tie in space, it's going to be a long game.
Butch Jones given all sorts of criticism and ridicule at this point in his career at Tennessee, and I understand that the program is stalled, but let's rewind a few years and understand that Derek Dooley was winning 5 games a season, and that was his final campaign at Tennessee. Butch Jones upped the recruiting value of this program substantially. He brought in top 5 to top 15 classes each and every year. He brought it from a 5-win program that's roughly top 45 to 50 in the country to a status in which they could win most of their games in the SEC, win back-to-back 9-game seasons, and really dissect that 2015 campaign. They lose to Florida on a 4th and 16 play that's infamous in Tennessee history now, after they had lost whatever 10 or 11 consecutive games against the Gators. So they lose that one that they had in the bag by 2 scores in the 4th quarter and a 4th and 16 that they gave up to Antonio Callaway. That was the year that they really needed to break through. They had an Oklahoma team that went on to the college football playoff down by 2 scores in the 4th quarter at home. They had Arkansas down. They had Alabama, as we mentioned a few minutes ago, down in the 4th quarter. They were a 9-4 team that was this close to, it sounds ridiculous now, but to get to the college football playoff. And then they followed up with a like 9-4 season in which they generally beat who they were supposed to beat until late in the season. And they should have won the SEC East because they got over that Florida hump, and you figured, okay, they got over the Florida hump. They're so much better than the rest of this division at this point that they should be able to win the division. Nope, they lose to Vandy. They lose to South Carolina. And based on all the talent that exited the program that you outlined, there was just no way that they were going to come back and put together a season that was going to contend in that division, especially with the upgrade we've seen out of Athens, Georgia. So Butch Jones in a very difficult spot.
It's tough. It's really tough. It's not only tough for him, but you got to think about the fan base too, Mark. The Tennessee fans want a winner. They want cash money in the bag. They want an elite name. Tennessee fans think of themselves on the same level as Alabama. For the last years, whether it be 10, 15 years, Tennessee has always been either number 1 or number 2 when it comes to SEC football. They've never been that 3rd and 4th and 5th tier. They never want to think of themselves as that 3rd, 4th, or 5th tier. And you really thought that Butch Jones had this program getting back to, where it once was. It was on the uptick. It was on the upswing. And you really wanted to believe we're building this thing brick by brick by brick. You really wanted to believe, we're champions of life. You really wanted to believe everything that Butch was putting into this program. But the simple fact of it has not proven to get this bunch back to an elite status. And there are so many names that have been thrown into the rumor mill that could potentially get a call to run Rocky Top.